Okay, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. My name is Helen Tung and I'm a Minerva Fellow. Today I'm going to talk about episode 7, and that is a visit to Tsukuba, JAXA. Now, amongst many things, I wanted to say it was a nice, bright, sunny morning, and I was terribly excited to go and visit Tsukuba. A few people said to me, Helen, there's really not much to see. And I did a little bit of research, and there are a number of research institutions. In fact, there's a whole network of scientific organizations. And so I sort of went along really with no expectations. So I took the bus, the train and then the bus. It took about an hour and a half, a bit more. And pretty much the bus stop landed exactly at the entrance of Tsukuba JAXA. Now, on the bus, there were hardly anyone. There were maybe like a handful of people. I kind of guessed that probably most of them either was heading for JAXA or heading for the University of Tsukuba. I would pretty much say that the town feel or the city feels a lot like a university city because firstly, it's the first impression I got is there's not a lot of people, it's quite spread out, and it's very close to nature. So pretty much even within an hour or so, you are very much outside of Tokyo proper. I didn't get a sense at all of the buzz and the hustle of Tokyo at all. So I went there first. I had an appointment, but before then I went for the whole tour. Now, what is really impressive about the tour is you pretty much, up until there are two appointment times, one about 1:30, one about I think 1 o'clock, 11:30, one about 1:30. And in the meantime, it's like you get to roam around and see what's in store. So one of the things I noticed is they have a very organized queue, and on that day there were busloads of school kids. So clearly I was not the only one thinking of a visit. You had a few rooms. So one of the rooms had a video of Wakata Sensei, who was one of the initial astronauts that went, and demonstrations of swimming in space, which I totally loved. There was also other videos of more scientific research. There were magazines, there were booklets, and of course you could not, see space. Without manga. So, of course, there were images of Space Brothers, and overall, it was really, I think the build up was really great. When it came to my turn to actually go through the tour, we were taken to a room where we had an initial video, introductory video. It was pretty much like sort of the 7 doors of what JAXA does: science, research, R&D, and all that. And I thought it was very well done because even though I don't understand Japanese, it was actually very well presented. And then we went for a tour initially to the control room. Now, I think there isn't much difference from what you see on TV to what you see in other sort of notions of the control room, basically of the International Space Station. The idea was, I think, they basically had a closed screen. So when we had a tour of maybe like 7 people, they sort of opened it up, and obviously we didn't want to disturb the people working. We could see people with many, many screens, and obviously it's one of those scenarios where people just have to, I think, keep an eye on what's going on so that there's no sort of disasters or, last minute crisis moments. But it was very interesting. And we also had a tour of what do astronauts do? What do they eat? What do they wear? So they had a few items from NASA, particularly sort of the astronaut suits and helmet, and there was a lot of dried food. So food, I guess you would eat at space. Now, I think what is particularly interesting is, there was rice, curry, ramen, zuku beans and all that, which obviously is very typical Japanese, and I think that makes you think of space and how one of the things or home comforts of being away from home is actually food. And having spent time in Japan now for a few months, I realize that food is a huge part of the culture, whether it's lunchtime, dinners, gifts, omiyage. I mean, I would say 70, if not 80% of the omiyage are all food gifts. I think that actually says a lot about the culture and the appreciation of food. And so you've guessed it, how can you not have amazing food in space? So After that tour, I then had my meeting, and it was very much on space applications and very much on what's the use of data in Earth observation. Now, I think one of the things that I've been trying to do so far is look at EU-Japan NewSpace in the context of space applications. And when I looked at this, I sort of sensed that the market wasn't quite big enough. And so coming to Tsukuba and actually, I guess, hearing from the horse's mouth and get an idea of, wow, there is so much going on. There is so much research, space applications for agriculture, specifically focusing on natural disaster, looking at other ways, transportation and use. Though the feeling I get is, how do you go from the theory, or at least the wonderful know-how, to bringing it to the people so that it actually gets used on a whole scale level? What I'm trying to say is, for all those people working in space and space applications and Earth observation, they know exactly what they're doing. So really, there's no need to sort of reinforce or talk to them as such, because it's like teaching a nanny to suck eggs. It's the younger generation, it's the entrepreneurs, which I have a sense when we talk about space applications, we really need to tap into. Now, I go back to this idea of how Prime Minister Abe wants to double the space sector in the next 5 years, and how the European Union will basically, ESA, the JAXA, wants to also look at space applications, believing that this is where Earth observation, or at least application on Earth, is where the trillion-dollar business is. The gap that I'm seeing is actually in the notion of entrepreneurship. So you could say it's the less tangible, difficult to grasp, and how can you actually make it happen gap that I'm actually focusing on. When I started this research, I really didn't anticipate this, but it made me realize that there is a real need. So I'll give you an example. I did visit a few other places in Tsukuba, including Aicham, which is on water natural disaster management, and also Tsukuba University. What I did observe is, I don't know whether it's because of the season or whether it's just the simple location, is it's quite isolated. As I said before, an hour and a half or so away, and you feel the difference. You feel nature, you can see the fields, you can see the massive houses, which I definitely wasn't anticipating being in, thinking that, not all places are like Tokyo, basically. But then I really got a sense of, where is the population? Or where would the entrepreneurs come from in such a city? Now, to give you an idea, when I looked at the research online, it was incredible. The network was really strong. But when you're there in person, it's very difficult to actually get that sense of that kind of a network. And it purely is it's a bit like, when a lot of people have expectations of Paris, and they go to Paris, and I think there's a syndrome where a lot of tourists experience when they get slightly disappointed, and it's so severe that they actually get diagnosed in hospital. Now, I did not experience that with scuba, but what I did sense is, I am having a difficulty trying to understand where there is so much potential, and there certainly is, from what the people I've spoken to, a lot of activity ongoing. But the gap, the gap of where the entrepreneurs are supposed to play a role, the gap where the entrepreneurs are supposed to bridge the gap of doubling the space sector in the next 5 years, this is where I guess is the potential and the potential solution to my research. Now, for some of you, I had mentioned, and also in my YouTube, that part of my mission is to understand, where is this new space hub in Japan? A lot of people have told me, well, of course it's Tokyo. I can take that as a given, but I would say that's a very lazy way of doing research. And that is part of the reason why I would rather go and see people, visit a few more places, and to better understand how or what. Now, the few locations I've got in mind include Nagoya, Kyoto, and Hokkaido. If for whatever reason you actually say, Helen, there are some places you definitely need to go and check out, then by all means, please let me know. My email is newspace2060 at gmail.com. And also, please hashtag NewSpace2060 and also at EU Japan Center. And so I will follow up with my next episode on Tsukuba Aicha. Thanks.